Today we're going to demonstrate the Meridian VAT add-on VIES module. So let's talk about standard SAP and the VAT ID checks within SAP. There's a control of maintenance of VAT IDs within SAP, but the only checks that are done are the ISO code digit check, which will basically check that when you create a VAT ID for your customer or vendor, that number matches up with what's expected in the system to be the right amount of digits in a VAT ID for that jurisdiction. With the Meridian VAT add-on, we've tried to enhance that logic to bring in a lot more variables to that check. Firstly, we'll automatically check the VIES database to see if the VAT ID that you've entered for your customer or vendor actually exists there. And we'll also confirm the correlation of the name and address between your SAP system and what's been entered on the VIES database for your customer. We then add audit approval, verification, and a database that will give you all of the results of checks within your system to the VIES website. Looking again at the VAT ID checks within standard SAP, in these screenshots you can see how the country-specific checks are set up, and somebody within your business in customizing will dictate the number of fields and the length that a VAT number should be for each jurisdiction. That's the only checking that's done within SAP because there is no call to an outside source to make sure those VAT IDs are valid on the day that you're creating a transaction to your customer or vendor. These VAT ID checks within standard SAP, we can show you the messages that are produced by SAP here. So on the right-hand side, you can see that you'll be told the entry in the field for VAT reg number is longer than the 12 characters as dictated by you and your system. The VAT registration number contains invalid characters if you have mentioned in the customizing that only certain characters are available. And then it will tell you that the VAT registration number is invalid. This message that the VAT registration number is invalid is not really accurate because it means that the VAT registration number is invalid only based on the criteria you've set yourself in the system. It doesn't have any checks to see if this is really a live and correct VAT ID for your customer. Within the Meridian VAT add-on, we look a little bit differently at the VAT ID checks, and we like to have a more robust approach to checking that correct information is within your system. So the VAT add-on checks the validity according to the VIES database once the business partner is set up and saved. Also, if you make changes to a business partner where the VAT ID is changed, that will also create a new check on the VIES website. So you're often getting most accurate data by checking the VIES website on a regular basis. And as you can see on the right-hand side, you'll get a VIES VAT validation message to say that this is an unknown number in VIES and therefore shouldn't be used for your customer or vendor. So we also check the validity period of foreign VAT IDs. You will have a number of customers and vendors that not only have their country of establishment VAT ID, but will be registered in multiple other jurisdictions. It's important to make sure that all of those VAT IDs are valid also, and when you determine a sale or a purchase from one of those jurisdictions, that you've got the correct and accurate information in your system. There's a number of other checks, as already mentioned, that we do within the Meridian VAT add-on. So we'll look at the business partner name as stored in SAP, and we'll check if there's any difference between that and the name of the VAT ID for the customer who's used the VIES website to upload their data. What we do is we give a percentage match, so a percentage match between the company name from VIES and the company name that you've entered into your system. We do the exact same fields with address, and we give you a percentage match for how much the address matches between the SAP system and the VIES system. And then the VAT ID number is used against multiple business partners to make sure that you don't have multiple customers sharing the same VAT ID. When we think about the results of these checks, we need to have a results monitor in order for us to be able to show what's happening every time we change a VAT ID in our system. In order to access this, we go to our VIES reporting section of the VAT cockpit, and within here you can see all of the results of VAT ID checks that have taken place in your company. On the selection screen, you can run this results monitor based on a number of different headings. If we go to this slide, you can see all of the selection fields that are available. There's the object, which is the customer or vendor number. You can enter your business partner numbers there. You can search by the country keys if you want to see all customers in a certain jurisdiction. If you want to search a number of VAT registration numbers, you can do it that way. All checked VAT IDs. You can also filter by whether you've had a connection error to the system. When Meridian tries to get information from the VIES website, sometimes the website is down. So Meridian will produce a message to let you know that's the case and still store the result that check has taken place, which is important for an audit trail to make sure all your customers and vendors are accurate. You can also search by any of our other errors like an unknown VAT ID, repeated VAT ID, or wrong name and address. And then there's an approval status stage where a tax manager can look for records that he's already approved, some that he's rejected, or any that are still to be confirmed. This is how the results monitor works, and there's a number of headings in the next two slides that will show us exactly the information that's passed back. Some of the things we can see here, like of course your business partner number, and that creates a direct link to the business partner in your system where you can drill down and look at the information related to that business partner. You've got the date and time of when the check was done. You also have the VAT registration number that was used. You can see what user was that created the check. And then most importantly, the results from the VIES website. You can see here in my first two examples for Germany, under VAT name VIES, the VIES website hasn't sent us back any information for the name. That's because for German companies, there is no indicator of the name on the VIES website for multiple of the customers there. It's not a necessity. So with that in mind, we've built extra code to not do a name check for German vendors because the information is not there within the website. But if you look on the third one, we've got a Danish customer. We can see the VAT name and the SAP name do not have a direct match. So the percentage match for the name is only 16%. The reason we give a percentage match is because we need to be able to see if there's very small differences. If you get an 85% match because you put in Meridian Limited instead of Meridian Global Limited, of course, that's most likely going to be the same customer. And we need to be able to show our customers that if you get a high enough match, that's actually an error that can be avoided. So what we do is we allow you to select within the system what tolerance level you want to do for your name and address. So if you say, if I get over an 85% match, then that's fine. That's going to be a correct result. Then that can be built into the system to allow you not have to come in and review all of these checks when the name match is slightly off. If I move to the next slide, you can see where we will indicate what error messages, if any, have come with this check. So you'll see the unknown VAT ID in the VIES website. That's obviously the most important one. We will let you know if that's the case. On the very left-hand side, you'll see the VIES reference. So when we do get a result from the VIES website for a valid VAT ID, we will give that VIES reference here that comes directly back from the website. And then further down the road, if you're ever asked in an audit or anybody wants to check some of the checks that you've done on the VIES website, you have that reference number here as an indicator to prove that you've made the necessary steps to ensure the VAT ID is correct. If we look at the interactive functionality of the results monitor, there's a number of icons that can be used. So you can approve any checks, even if, for example, you have a one-time customer, the VAT ID comes back with an error message, but you know it's just a clerical error that they haven't updated the VIES website correctly themselves, or whatever the case may be. This option can be used just to approve a check and not have to consider it every time you use the results monitor. You can also reject a check, which means that field is marked as rejected and that the VIES number is not accurate as to what you're expecting from the customer, and therefore further action needs to be taken. You can, of course, display the customer, the business partner, the vendor by using the glasses icon, and that allows you to drill down directly into the BP master data and make any changes that you need to make there. And you can also add approval notes for any of the checks within the VIES results monitor to allow you in future see exactly what steps might need to be taken in order to rectify the change, or a note explaining why this has been approved or rejected. It's also possible to upload documents. We found it's important that customers are given the option to send you a document to prove their VAT ID is correct, even if the VIES website is not up to date yet. So maybe they're waiting on it to be updated there, and they send you a document to prove that their VAT ID is correct. That can be uploaded as part of the check in the monitor as a future reference for people to understand that this is indeed an accurate VAT ID. We now move on to what we call our VIES incompletion logs. What we've done with this process is, instead of just telling our customers that a VAT ID is correct or incorrect, we also want to take the next step and decide, is it important for us to look at those checks when creating a sales order, and indeed blocking a sales order from creating an invoice if it's to a non-valid VAT ID. The reason we're spending a lot more time on this process now and giving this flexibility to customers is that since 2020, there's been a lot more emphasis put on the accuracy of VAT IDs in Europe. And the reason that, of course, we need these VAT IDs is to allow for EU simplification transactions where no VAT is charged. We need to be more accurate about these checks in our system, and that's why we've introduced incompletion logs to allow sales orders to be blocked from billing if your results monitor is telling you that this is a non-valid VAT ID. So just to note there, that existing sales order with the incompletion log would need to be repriced to enable the completion of the order. So when you go and approve a certain VAT ID in the system, when your sales order staff go back to that sales order, as soon as they open that, there should be a repricing done automatically. And if not, it can be done manually through the pricing procedure. Now, the incompletion log functionality can be controlled in the activation tables. And this is an important note because a lot of our customers will decide they don't want to block a sales order if they've got an incorrect name or address, and they only want to block a sales order if they've got an actual unknown validity. So as you can see here with the boxes on the bottom, for each VAT registration number of you as the customer selling, you can deactivate the unknown VAT ID check, the repeated VAT ID check, address check, name check, and so on, everything we've discussed, and therefore not create an incompletion log for small errors, but only for the big errors where the actual VAT ID is unknown. This, of course, can be set up and personalized in each of our customers' own systems. There's no hard and fast rules to follow. As part of a project, we would work to make sure we know what works exactly for you as a client. As you can see here for the incompletion logs, this is where we can also set a threshold for the name match and the address match to say, if my name match is lower than 75% in this case, I want to block the sales order. If it's higher, we know there's probably just a small typing error or there's a few letters in a different arrangement on the VIES website, and therefore we don't want to block any invoicing, and the same can be done with the address match. The last thing I want to discuss is the bulk execution. So every time you create a customer or vendor or change the VAT IDs, we create an entry in the results monitor. But what if our clients want to, every now and again, check all of the VAT IDs are still valid in the system? Because just because you've got one check from last year doesn't mean that's still a valid VAT ID. So for that, we've introduced the bulk execution. Within the bulk check program, it should be used under certain circumstances that mean you want to make sure that the evidence of VAT IDs in your system is still up to date. So what we do is we allow our customers to create, via these different parameters that you see on the screen, a recheck of the VAT numbers that have been already gone through the system, and again, just getting the validity for that up to date. So as an initial exercise, all existing master data entries at the start of a project with Meridian can be quickly checked with these bulk checks. We would advise to do it by country or by certain business partners because we have to call the VIES website for every one of these checks, and the performance of the system can slow down if it's a case that it's being bombarded with thousands upon thousands of checks. So as I just note here, when using the bulk checking, the program can be either run in the background or online, but if there's a huge amount of checks being done, it may affect the performance. So we would always recommend certainly 200 to 300 checks as being the maximum performed in each bulk check that's actually done. But as you can see again with the different parameters, that's made very easy because you can decide to run all of your vendors for one country, for example, or a certain range of business partner numbers, like from 1 to 200, whatever the case may be.